For Chapter 11 in your textbook for Sociology 392, Unobtrusive Research. So what is unobtrusive research? Well, this is methods of studying social behavior without affecting it. So we're not interacting with people at all in the course of this research. We have no contact with human subjects. We're going to talk about a very, very famous study, which is Durkheim's analysis of suicide, one of the most well-known sociological studies, and he actually used unobtrusive research. So he did not have any contact with human subjects at all. So several of the types of unobtrusive research we're going to talk about today: content analysis, analysis of existing statistics, and comparative and historical analysis. Okay, so first, content analysis. This is the study of recorded human communications. So you might do a content analysis of books, of websites, of paintings, of laws, of tweets, of Reddit posts, etc., etc. So appropriate topics would be who says what, to whom, why, how, and with what effect. So we are not, interviewing or surveying people to get their opinions directly. We're looking at their recorded human communications to see what their, thoughts and opinions are. Okay, so content analysis, we can use any sampling technique. For coding, we have, we're going to talk about coding a little bit later on in the course, but I'll just go into it a little bit briefly here. So we have manifest coding, so a surface meaning. So maybe you're going to count how many times a word appears. And then we have latent coding as well. So this is really the underlying meaning. So we're diving deep down into sort of those codes and seeing what they truly mean. Okay, so something, for content analysis that you have to take into consideration is counting and record keeping. So the end product of coding must be numerical. Record keeping must distinguish between units of analysis and units of observation. Record from the base from which the counting is done. So maybe we're, looking at newspapers. We're going to take 10 newspapers. We want to definitely say how many newspapers we had, number of editorials evaluated, the subjective evaluation of this. So really we're using numbers along with our words and meanings when we're doing a content analysis. So strengths of content analysis. The biggest one is it saves time and money. You are not collecting your own data. You are using, recorded thoughts of somebody else already without having to go out and find those people and, get them to agree to participate to record their thoughts. It allows for the correction of errors. So you can always go back and reanalyze, your codes and see, make sure you have the right thing, what went on. You can reanalyze everything to, make comparisons here. Because everything is recorded. So, there's always the off chance that you might accidentally delete an interview. Well, that won't happen with content analysis because the words are always going to be there for you to go and look back on. Permits the study of processes occurring over time. So maybe we want to look at the differences in recordings of an opinion in the 1950s compared to now. Well, if we're collecting our own data, that would be a very, very long longitudinal study, right? Probably not feasible. But since we can do a content analysis, we can go back to records from the 1950s to see how people felt about, a specific topic then and compare them to now. Research has little, if any, effect on subjects. Again, we're not going to harm our subjects. The only reason that I could think that we would potentially harm them would be if something was, private recorded communications and we let them out to the public and identified the subject. But really, there's not a lot of reasons for this to go ethically wrong, at least when we're, recording and analyzing our data. Reliability is a big one as well, that it's pretty, when we're just looking at recorded words or thoughts or feelings of somebody else, we have more reliability than if we were to go and interview people, how different people interview in different ways. Well, if we're looking at things that are already written down or recorded, this, increases our reliability. Probably the biggest strength of a content analysis is you do not have to go through the IRB, which takes a lot of time and effort and headache and stress a lot of times. So content analysis, you don't have to go through the IRB usually, which is great. The weaknesses, it's limited to recorded communication, so there might be a lot of other communications out there that would be useful for the project, but unfortunately only what is recorded or written down can be used. Secondly, the validity. We're not too sure how true these things are that people are saying. It's really, really hard to develop validity from this. Okay, so analyzing existing statistics. This is usually done when we're talking about quantitative data analysis. Sometimes we're able to reanalyze, transcripted interviews that people have already done. However, the most common way of doing this is through, quantitative data analysis. This is using raw data that somebody has already collected. So this is extremely, extremely common in social science research. Some researchers build their whole careers on not collecting their own data, but analyzing data that someone has already collected. And that is completely fine. It's not seen as less than. For research projects, it is completely fine to analyze already available data. There's tons of data out there that are available to be analyzed. There's websites specifically for this. ICPSR is a good one if you're looking for social data to analyze. Lots of government websites you can go to. You can use FBI data. You can use National Crime Victimization Statistic data. You can use general social survey data. So there's tons of opportunity out there to do secondary data analysis. Again, one of the most famous studies in sociology used secondary data analysis. Durkheim did not collect his own data. He used data that was already collected to use to make his study. So he looked at the suicide rates in different countries, as well as percentages of Protestants and Catholics. So he looked at this raw data that was collected from these different countries and, formulated his research question out of that. Okay, so there's a few problems with analyzing existing statistics. Again, there's problems with validity. Logical reasoning is one. We're not, sometimes we're not able to really use the variables that people have collected. They might not be good for our own projects. The ecological fallacy, again, this is applying what we learn about individuals to more macro area things. So, for example, in Durkheim's suicide, he wasn't able to record whether people who were Protestant or Catholic were the ones committing suicide. He looked specifically at rates within countries. So again, this is kind of confusing the micro and macro level there. Replication, again, could be difficult when you're doing this. Problem with the reliability, again, the quality of existing statistics. Whoever collected this data, we're sort of putting all our trust in them that they collected it properly, and we're not sure unless you go out and collect it yourself. Again, lots of areas you can get statistics from, government websites, United Nations, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so the next type is comparative and historical research. So examining societies or other social units over time and in comparison with one another. So we look at sources of comparative and historical data from personal records, newspapers, government websites, etc. Usually we're using qualitative analytic techniques, and it's usually based on an existing theory. So here again, we might compare people's thoughts and feelings from a time in the past compared to now. It'd be next to impossible to actually collect all this data yourself. So here we can sort of go back retroactively and look at data from that time. Ethics. Again, main benefit of this is usually does not require IRB approval. There's a much smaller likelihood that an unobtrusive research study is going to harm subjects in any way. Sometimes we can violate their privacy, but again, it's much less of an issue in research that involves participants. Of course, the general principles of honest observation, analysis, and reporting apply to all research techniques, even unobtrusive research.